There's a particular kind of man walking around who makes everyone slightly nervous, though they can't quite say why. He's not angry, he's not broken. He doesn't wear his isolation like a wound that needs healing. That's what unsettles people. He should be lonely. That's what we've all agreed is supposed to happen when someone stops chasing the carousel everyone else is riding. But when you look in his eyes, there's no desperation there, no FOMO, no apology for the life he's chosen. Just a strange calm that feels almost like an accusation. While the world sprints from one distraction to the next, swiping, posting, proving they're living their best life, he's discovered something the rest of us are running from. He found out that the party everyone's desperately trying to get into is actually the thing keeping them out. Alan Watts understood this man perfectly. Watts said we thought of life by analogy with a journey, with a pilgrimage, which had a serious purpose at the end. But we missed the point the whole way along. It was a musical thing, and you were supposed to sing or to dance while the music was being played. This man stopped walking toward the horizon. He started dancing right where he was standing. And the room he's dancing in? 4 walls, 1 door, no audience. Everyone else calls it staying home. He calls it the first honest thing he's done in years. You see, modern life is constructed around a very specific lie, that you have to keep moving or you'll die, that stillness equals stagnation, that a weekend spent alone is a weekend wasted, that a man without plans is a man without purpose. We've turned constant motion into a virtue and stillness into a symptom of failure. But he looked at that equation and saw the con. All that motion, all that noise, all those weekend plans and social obligations and networking events and dates that go nowhere, they're not signs of a life fully lived. They're signs of a life fully fled. So he stopped fleeing. He walked through his own front door, locked it behind him, and waited to meet the one person he'd spent his entire life avoiding himself. And that meeting changed everything. Most people think loneliness is what happens when you're by yourself. He discovered loneliness is what happens when you're never by yourself. Think about it. You're surrounded by people all day, co-workers, friends, dates, family, strangers on the subway pressed against your body. You're talking, texting, liking, commenting, performing connection constantly, and somehow, at the end of all that contact, you feel more isolated than ever. You're lonely in crowds, hollow after parties, empty after sex with someone whose last name you'll forget by morning. He realized something. You can't be lonely when you're alone. Loneliness requires the presence of others to remind you that connection isn't happening. Being alone is just being. This is what Watts called the backwards law. The more you try to grasp something, the more it slips through your fingers. The harder you chase happiness, the more it runs. The more you seek connection out there, the more disconnected you feel in here. So he tried the opposite. He stopped chasing. He came home. And the thing he'd been hunting for his entire life was waiting for him in the hallway, laughing at the absurdity of the whole hunt. Now here's where it gets strange. When he first stayed home on a Friday night, consciously, deliberately, his body went into panic mode. Every cell screamed at him that he was doing it wrong, that real life was happening somewhere else, that he was wasting his youth, his potential, his one wild and precious life. His phone buzzed with invitations. His Instagram showed him exactly what he was missing. Rooftop parties, clinking glasses, beautiful people having the time of their lives. The FOMO felt like actual physical pain. But he sat with it. He didn't try to make it go away. He didn't medicate it with another scroll, another plan, another desperate reach for validation. He just sat there and watched the panic like you'd watch a storm from inside a house. And after about 20 minutes, something miraculous happened. The panic got bored and left. What remained was quiet. Not the quiet of a cemetery, the quiet of a forest, alive, breathing, humming with 1,000 subtle sounds you never notice when you're making noise. In that quiet, he heard something he hadn't heard in years, his own thoughts. Not the reactive, anxious, planning thoughts. The deeper ones. The thoughts underneath the thoughts. The ones asking questions that don't have Google answers. Who am I when nobody's watching? What do I actually want versus what I've been told to want? When did I stop being curious and start performing competence? These questions don't come up at brunch. They don't surface during small talk. They only emerge in stillness. And most people are so terrified of these questions, they've structured their entire lives to avoid them. He stopped avoiding. And the questions didn't destroy him, they freed him. Here's what nobody tells you about staying home. The room gets bigger. Not physically, but experientially. When you're constantly running between locations, every place becomes a blur, a backdrop for your performance. You're never actually in the coffee shop, the office, the bar. You're in your head, rehearsing what to say next, monitoring how you're being perceived, planning your exit. But when you stay in one place, really stay, not just kill time until the next thing, the place reveals itself. It has depth, texture, personality. That crack in the ceiling, it's shaped like a river. You never notice because you are always looking at your phone. The way afternoon light hits the wall at exactly 4:17 p.m. and turns everything amber for 6 minutes, that's a daily miracle you were too busy to witness. The particular creak the floorboard makes when you walk to the kitchen at night, that's the house saying hello. The Zen masters talk about this. They'd spend entire lifetimes looking at a single garden, not because they were boring people with limited options, because they understood something. Infinity isn't out there in the endless options of where to go next. Infinity is right here, in the endless depth of where you are. Alan Watts put it like this: when you get free from certain fixed concepts of the way the world is, you find it is far more subtle and far more miraculous than you thought it was. The man who stays home got free from the fixed concept that life is a series of destinations to collect. He discovered life is a single place to penetrate. And once you start penetrating one place, really looking, really listening, really being present, you realize the whole universe is right here. Not metaphorically, actually. The spider building a web in the corner of his window is doing exactly what galaxies do, spinning order out of chaos. The way steam rises from his tea follows the same fluid dynamics as nebulae. The patterns in the wood grain of his table are the same fractal mathematics as coastlines and lightning bolts. He's not missing the world. He's seeing the world for the first time, without the distortion of constantly trying to be somewhere else. There's a Taoist concept called Wu Wei, effortless action or non-forcing. It's often misunderstood as doing nothing, but it's not passivity. It's about being so completely present that action flows naturally, without the violence of trying. The man who stays home is practicing Wu Wei. He's not forcing himself to be social when his nervous system is screaming for quiet. He's not pretending to enjoy things he doesn't enjoy. He's not performing a version of masculinity that requires constant conquest and expansion. He's simply allowing his nature to express itself. And his nature, it turns out, is quiet, deep, inward, not broken, not deficient, just different from what the culture insists a man should be. This is where it gets dangerous for the system, because if men start realizing they don't need to prove anything, don't need to acquire anything, don't need to perform anything to be worthy, the entire economy of insecurity collapses. Every advertisement is designed to make you feel incomplete. Every social media platform is engineered to make you feel you're missing out. Every cultural message about success is meant to keep you running on the hamster wheel, buying solutions to problems that were sold to you in the first place. The man who stays home stepped off the wheel, not in protest, not with anger. He just stopped. And the wheel kept spinning without him, and nothing bad happened. Actually, something good happened. For the first time in his adult life, he stopped feeling like he was behind on life milestones, behind his peers, behind where he should be at his age. Because should be is a fiction. It's a story someone else wrote that you agreed to live inside. He walked out of that story and discovered his own story was waiting for him, much smaller, much quieter, and infinitely more true. Something happens when you spend enough time alone. The person you thought you were starts to dissolve. Not in a bad way, in the way fog dissolves when the sun comes up. What you're left with is what was always there underneath the performance. See, out in the world, you're constantly being told who you are. Your job title tells you. Your relationship status tells you. Your social media following tells you. Your bank account, your car, your zip code, your college degree, the company you keep, all of it is shouting at you, this is who you are. And you believe it. You have to believe it, because if you don't, you'll realize something terrifying. You have no idea who you are without all those external markers. The man who stays home let all those markers fall away, and the person who remained wasn't who he expected. He expected to find the anxious, inadequate man that his internal monologue had been describing for decades, the one who wasn't enough. wasn't trying hard enough, wasn't successful enough, wasn't desirable enough. The harsh voice that sounds like your father, your ex, every person who ever made you feel small, all mixed together into one relentless prosecutor. But when he sat in silence long enough, that voice ran out of material. It needs an audience to perform for. It needs comparison to fuel itself. Alone, with nothing to prove and no one to impress, the voice just stopped. And underneath it, quiet. Not empty, quiet, full quiet. The kind of quiet that has substance, like water. Watts talked about this constantly. He'd say you are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. Most people never discover this because they're too busy narrating their own story to notice they're being lived by something much larger. The man who stays home stopped narrating, and the universe started speaking. It speaks in strange ways, not in words, in sensations, in sudden understanding that arrives fully formed, like a package left on the doorstep while you are sleeping. One day he's making breakfast, eggs, toast, nothing special, and suddenly he understands that he's never actually tasted food before. He's eaten thousands of meals while thinking about other things, while scrolling, while talking, while planning the next meal. But tasting, being completely present to the salt and the butter and the texture and the temperature, never. So he eats slowly, absurdly slowly, each bite a complete experience from beginning to end. And it's revelatory. It's as if he's been living his whole life in black and white and someone just switched on the color. This isn't some mindfulness technique he learned from an app. This is what happens when you stop rushing, when you stop performing productivity, when you stop treating your life like a problem to optimize. You start actually living it. Here's the thing nobody warns you about. Once you taste reality directly without the filter of constant distraction, without the numbing of constant stimulation, you can't go back. The old life starts to look insane. Not wrong, not immoral, just insane. You see people at restaurants, 4 of them at a table, each on their phone, and you realize they're not having dinner together. They're having dinner alone, in parallel. You see people at concerts, watching the show through their phone screen so they can post it, and you understand they're not experiencing the music. They're experiencing the performance of experiencing the music. You see people in relationships who've never actually met each other, because they're both too busy performing the role of person in a relationship to notice the stranger standing next to them. And you realize you used to be that person. You used to live that way. And now you can't. Not because you're better than anyone, but because you've woken up, and you can't force yourself back to sleep no matter how much more comfortable the dream was. The man who stays home didn't choose to be awake. He just stopped taking the sleeping pills that society hands out like candy. The pills called busy, productive, social, successful. He stopped swallowing them, and the world snapped into focus. But here's the paradox, and this is pure Watts. The moment he stopped trying to live a meaningful life, his life became meaningful. The moment he stopped trying to be happy, he discovered he already was. The moment he stopped seeking connection, he realized he'd never been separate from anything. This is what the Buddhists call the gateless gate. There's no entrance to enlightenment, because you're already inside. You've always been inside. You just didn't notice because you were too busy running around looking for the entrance. The man who stays home walked through the gateless gate without moving an inch. He just stopped pretending he was outside. People worry about him. They can't help it. When he declines invitations again, they start building narratives. He must be depressed, going through something, isolating in an unhealthy way. They send concerned texts, "Hey, just checking in, you doing okay?" And he is doing okay, better than okay. But there's no way to explain this without sounding either defensive or enlightened, and both of those are traps. How do you tell someone that you've discovered that what they call living feels like dying slowly, and what they call isolation feels like the first full breath you've taken in years? You can't. So you just smile and say, "Yeah, I'm good, just been busy." Busy, that's the magic word. Say you're busy, and everyone nods and backs off. Busy is acceptable. Busy means you're still playing the game, just on a different level. They don't need to know you're busy doing nothing. Busy watching dust move in a beam of sunlight. Busy listening to silence. Busy being. The truth is, he's not avoiding people because he dislikes them. He's just discovered something most people never do. Other people are not the answer to your loneliness. Other people are often the cause of it. Because when you're with others, you have to manage impressions. Monitor reactions. Calibrate your personality to the room. Make sure you're being interesting but not too intense, vulnerable but not too needy, present but not too demanding of attention. It's exhausting. And after all that management, you go home and realize you weren't actually there. You were performing, being there. The real you was hiding behind the performance, watching, waiting for it to be over so you could drop the mask and breathe. The man who stays home stopped wearing masks. Not because he's braver than anyone else, because he got tired. The masks got heavy, and one day he just set them down and realized he could survive without them. Now when he does go out, and he does, occasionally, not because he should but because something genuinely calls to him, he's completely different. He's not performing, he's not trying to make an impression, he's just there present, undefended. And people don't know what to do with him. He makes them uncomfortable. Not because he's rude or weird, because he's real, and reality, unfiltered reality, is shocking when you're used to everyone performing for each other. There's a concept in Zen called beginner's mind, approaching everything as if for the first time without preconceptions. The man who stays home has beginner's eyes now. He sees people clearly, sees their fear, their desperate need to be validated, their exhausting hustle to be perceived as winning, and he feels compassion, not judgment, because he used to be them. He remembers what it's like to need the world's approval to feel real. But he also can't unsee what he's seen, and what he's seen is this. Almost everyone is sleepwalking. They're living someone else's dream of what a good life looks like, repeating patterns they inherited, chasing goals they never chose, running from a fear they can't name. They're trying so hard to get somewhere that they never notice they're already here, and here is all there ever is. Alan Watts said this is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now, and instead of calling it work, realize it as play. The man who stays home realized his whole life had been work. Effortful, anxious, strategic work. Even his leisure was work, the work of proving he was fun, spontaneous, living his best life. Now everything is play, not play like a child who's faking happiness. Play like water that flows without trying to flow, like a tree that grows without a growth strategy, like a cat that stretches for no reason except that stretching feels true. He's not trying to be anything, and paradoxically, that's when he became everything he was supposed to be all along. Time works differently when you stop running from it. Out there, in the world of deadlines and appointments and plans, time is the enemy. There's never enough. It's always slipping away. You're always behind, always rushing, always acutely aware that you're using up your finite allocation on things that don't matter. But in here, time stops being linear. It stops being a resource to manage. It becomes something else entirely, something closer to weather. Some mornings he wakes up and time is thick, syrupy, slow. An hour feels like a week. He can sit with his coffee and watch the steam rise, and it's as if he's watching the birth and death of civilizations. Nothing happens, and everything happens. Other days, time is thin, fast, transparent. Hours dissolve like sugar in water. He looks up and it's dark outside and he has no idea where the day went, but he's not anxious about it because he wasn't trying to fill the day with accomplishments. He was just in it. This is what Taoism calls flowing with the Tao, the way of things. Not forcing your agenda onto reality, but letting reality reveal its own rhythm and matching it. The world runs on industrial time, clock time, time that's divided into productive units. 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of everything else you're supposed to cram into the margins. It's time as factory production, time as resource extraction. But natural time, the time your body actually runs on, is cyclical, seasonal, rhythmic. You're not meant to be productive 8 hours a day, every day, forever. You're meant to have seasons of intensity and seasons of rest, days of expansion and days of contraction, moments of doing and long stretches of being. The man who stays home returned to natural time. His body told him when to wake up, so he stopped using an alarm. His appetite told him when to eat, so he stopped eating by the clock. His energy told him when to create and when to rest, so he stopped forcing productivity. And his life didn't fall apart. That's the miracle. He didn't become lazy or aimless or depressed. He became alive in a way that can't be measured by productivity metrics. He's not producing less, he's producing differently. When he does make something, write something, build something, create something, It comes from a full well, not an empty obligation. It has substance, it has truth, because it wasn't squeezed out on a deadline. It emerged when it was ready. There's a Zen story Watts loved to tell. A student asks the master, "What is the way?" The master replies, "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep." The student says, "Isn't that what everyone does?" The master says, "No. When eating, most people think about hundreds of things. When sleeping, they dream of thousands of desires." The man who stays home is learning to eat when eating, sleep when sleeping, sit when sitting, not as a practice, as a life. This is what freedom actually is. Not freedom to do whatever you want. Freedom from the compulsion to be doing something. Freedom from the anxiety that you should be somewhere else, someone else, something more. He's discovered that all that running toward success, toward love, toward enlightenment, toward the next thing that will finally make him feel complete, was the problem. The running was what kept him incomplete. So he stopped running, and the thing he was running toward was revealed to be exactly where he'd been standing all along. Now there are days when the old panic returns, the feeling that he's wasting his life, that everyone else is accumulating experiences and achievements, and he's just here, doing nothing important, being no one special. On those days, he doesn't fight the panic. He makes it tea, sits with it, lets it say its piece, and usually after it's done ranting, after it's exhausted itself listing all the ways he's failing at life, it gets quiet. And in that quiet, a different voice speaks. Not the panic voice, the deeper one, the one that's been there since before he learned language. That voice says you're not wasting your life, you're living it, maybe for the first time. That voice says being no one special is the most special thing you could be. That voice says you're not behind, you're not ahead, you're right here, and here is exactly where the universe is happening. And he believes that voice now, not because it makes him feel better, but because when he's really still, really quiet, really present, he can feel that it's true. The universe is happening in his kitchen, in the way light bends through water in a glass, in the small sound the refrigerator makes, in the breath moving in and out of his lungs without him having to remember to breathe. All of it, the vast, cosmic, infinite everything is right here, condensed into this one ordinary moment. And this moment is not a stepping stone to some better future moment. This moment is the entire point. Alan Watts said the meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. The man who stays home stopped rushing around in a great panic. He stopped trying to achieve something beyond himself. He discovered that himself was already the achievement, already the miracle, already the whole damn point. But here's what happens when you finally stop running. When you sit still long enough, you start seeing clearly. And one of the first things you see is who's been draining you. The people you've been rescuing, who never change. The ones who mistake your stillness for availability. Watts discovered there are certain people who, when you help them, you're actually destroying both them and yourself. Watch this next.